Welcome back to a special NFL Draft edition of Six Borough Sports. Today, the Giants, Jets, and Dolphins have made their first 3 rounds of selections. The Miami Heat managed to steal one from Boston in Boston. And finally, the Panthers and Rangers are up 3-0 in both series and are getting ready to advance in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone to please like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 50 subscribers. Thank you so much. First things first, the New York Giants in the first round selected Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU. I really like this pick. I heard that they were allegedly going after Drake May, but the Patriots didn't want to move back and wanted Drake May. So this pick makes a lot of sense. I've seen a lot of people say his comp is Jamar Chase. And they showed like a side by side of them route running, and it looks almost identical. It looks like the same guy in a different uniform. And if he can be like Jamar Chase, that's a steal of a pick. And then later on in the second and third round, they selected Tyler Newman, a safety, and then Andrew Phillips in the third round, a corner out of Kentucky. And then later on in the fifth, they took Theo Johnson, a tight end. He had pretty good highlights, Theo Johnson. But again, I wanted a quarterback. I wanted Rattler. There's still time to draft a quarterback, but I really wanted a quarterback in this draft. Let's hope that they do it. The corner and safety makes sense. They need more secondary help. Their defensive line is pretty shored up. And again, Neighbors, I really like to boost the offense and be a primary target for whoever happens to be the quarterback. But yeah, I want an offensive lineman and a quarterback to clean up the rest of the Giants draft. Maybe a running back in there, but we'll see what happens. The Giants are having a pretty solid draft, but again, they need a quarterback. They cannot go into the season without a quarterback of the future, or at least one that they can test around with and try to develop, because they have another year of Daniel Jones. But it'll be very interesting to see how Neighbors plays in this offense. He's probably going to start right away. So hopefully they can figure out the quarterback situation, maybe through free agency next year or through the draft next year if they don't pick one this year. Moving on, we have the Miami Dolphins selecting Chop Robinson, defensive end, in the first round, and Patrick Paul, offensive lineman, in the second round. They're both pretty solid picks. The Dolphins defense is going to be dealing with some injuries at the beginning of the season. They weren't very healthy toward the end, so to shore up the defensive line is pretty good. They lost Wilkins over the offseason. They let Wilkins go because he didn't have a lot of sacks, and then Chop Robinson doesn't have a lot of sacks. But you're not going to be paying Robinson Wilkins money, so I guess that's kind of fair. Patrick Paul is good you always need to shore up the offensive line, so that was a solid pick. And in round 5, I got the draft on right now. They just picked up a running back from Tennessee. I don't get that one. They have A-Chain and they have Mostert. I know Mostert is probably not coming back after next year, and you can't replicate the year that he just had. But he did have the second fastest 40 time among running backs. So, which is a very Dolphins thing to do, get the fastest guy on offense. But the Dolphins picks aren't terrible. Not the hugest fan. There wasn't like a whole lot of crazy stuff they could do in this draft. Maybe they could get, they have another 6-rounder coming up. Maybe they could get a wide receiver in there. Maybe get some secondary help. But other than that, they had a pretty solid draft. Nothing outrageous. The running back one is pretty questionable. They could have used their resources a little better there. But it's going to be interesting because I think the Bills got worse. The Dolphins got worse, and if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, they're going to be dangerous with that defense. But we'll see. They're the Jets. They have a consistent problem with offensive production with Nathaniel Hackett. Speaking of the Jets, which happened between videos, Zach Wilson was traded to the Broncos for essentially a pick swap. And the Broncos now have another Wilson that was ruined by Nathaniel Hackett. Very, very weird, but it's a good spot for him because he's closer to Utah. It's more of his vibe, and he's got Sean Payton, a real offensive coach that can really, get him to focus. And it'll be interesting. The Broncos did select not JJ, Bo Nix. So Zach Wilson might, start a few games here and there or fight for the starting job initially, and then Bo Nix can come in. But the Jets, meanwhile, speaking of the Jets, had a really good draft. They took Olu Fashanu. I'm probably butchering that offensive tackle. That's perfect for now. And in the future, even after Rodgers leaves, you need an offensive lineman. So that's really good. And then they picked up Malachi Corley, wide receiver. I really like both of these picks. They're doing a great job. They needed to build up the offense. The defense is pretty shored up. They could make some moves over the offseason. There's still a lot of safeties and corners available. Heard about a potential Jamal Adams reunion. So, yeah, the Jets, I think, are doing everything right. It's just a matter of, executing on offense. And they have Tyrod Taylor now as a competent backup, but he even gets hurt. But that's a whole nother story. But I really like what the Jets are doing. And like I said, in the AFC East, they're going to be giving the Bills and the Dolphins a run for their money if Rodgers plays the full season. I also forgot to mention about the AFC East, the Patriots picked up like a lot of offensive weapons. Um, I like that idea because they have a defensive head coach. You get the defensive head coach and you put resources into the offense. And I think I saw Bob McAdoo in the war room there. um, but yeah, the Patriots I don't think are going to be as bad as people think. I think if they can keep Drake May relatively upright, give him some weapons, and play solid defense, they're going to be in games. They're going to be dangerous. And so we'll see what happens in the AFC East. Overall, though, I think the Giants probably had the best draft so far. They fixed a lot of problems with the wide receiver. They do need a quarterback. If they don't leave the draft with a quarterback that they could make a project, I'll be very disappointed. And then I will criticize their draft a little more. There's still time to take one. They don't need to make a huge investment in the guy, but they need to have a guy on the roster that can be like, all right, let's try to develop him and maybe we can turn him into something. Because I don't want to go into next year with like no quarterback prospects at all. And as for some just other interesting observations from the first round, the Steelers took a Troy with a Samoan last name in the first round, so that's pretty much a safe bet for the Steelers. Almost any like a lot of the Samoan players work out very well. Another big thing was what are the Falcons doing? What was that? I was shocked. Michael Penix, who's turning 24 next month, and they signed Kirk Cousins over the offseason, and Kirk wasn't in on this. That was mind blowing. I could not believe that. I don't get that line of thinking. You paid Kirk Cousins $140 million over 4 years to, and then you get a quarterback who's turning 24 in the draft. Like that's old for a drafted quarterback. So if Kirk Cousins plays out his whole contract, he'll be 28 at the end of it, playing like his maybe his first or second game, if depending on the situation. Now you could argue, okay, you have a competent backup now, but I don't get it. Wasting a first rounder on that didn't make sense. You're kind of all in when you sign Kirk Cousins to that kind of deal, and you want to, shore up the defense or get some more offense going. That didn't make sense to me. Another interesting pick I thought was the Vikings trading up and getting JJ McCarthy. They have a solid infrastructure in place to build around him, and I really like that they got a quarterback used to playing in cold weather. For playing in the NFC North, that's going to be really important down the road when they play in Green Bay and Chicago. I thought there would be a lot more trades in this draft, but it's been pretty quiet. There's been some little moves, but nothing outrageous. No team moving up to like one or two and like dumping everything. I think the Bryce Young fleecing that happened really hurt teams um, want to, move up in a crazy way and dump all that draft capital to get a top pick. So maybe that's the way it's going to go forward. A lot more teams are going to stand pat. I thought for sure there'd be more trades, and there wasn't too many, and there wasn't anything like crazy. The only mind blowing thing again was the Michael Penix thing. I'm still baffled by that. But hopefully the Giants get a quarterback in the later rounds. I'd like to see maybe the Dolphins get another extra wide receiver, maybe get some more defensive players. They're kind of in a tough situation. They need to hope that Tua elevates his game next year. And then as for the Jets did a great job, I think, shoring up the offensive line. I think that was very smart of them, and getting another wide receiver weapon. So we'll see what happens next year. That's kind of the disappointing thing about the draft. You get all excited and then you don't see these guys play for months, and then some of them you don't even see take the field because they're just it doesn't work out. But we'll see what happens. Moving on, we got the Miami Heat, who managed to shock the world and take down Boston in Boston, knocking down 23 three-pointers. You could see in the game, Boston was not crowding the line. They were begging for the Heat to drive, and the Heat obliged them by shooting threes in their face. Great win. It really shows the heart of the Heat. They take it back home. I just heard though that Wright will be out for this game due to some family issues. I wish him the best. But the Heat have to go on, and they've been short manned this whole series. So they just got to keep plugging away. If they can, win one of these at home or win both of them at home, that would be great. But I said it last week. I said the Heat are going to win one of these games. They're not going to go down quietly. And I said they needed to fight valiantly, and they're doing it so far. A lot of people are calling out Boston, and rightfully so. They don't look like a number one seed. They look like very exposed. They don't show up defensively sometimes. They play good schematically defensively, but they don't show toughness at times, and that cost them games. And Porzingis had like 10 points. He needs to step up every night. He can't take nights off. So you're starting to see the cracks with Boston. They're going to have trouble with a team like the Knicks because the Knicks, what they do is they hustle all the time, and if the game is close, then they'll beat you for it. The Knicks and the Heat are a little similar right now. The Knicks have a little more uh, pedigree. Sorry, the Heat have a little more pedigree with their success, but the Knicks are essentially doing what the Heat do, is just keep the games close and then grind them down into a fine powder toward the end of the game. But we'll see. It's going to be a close series. I think going forward, taking a road game in Boston was huge for the Heat. If they want a chance to win this series, they need to at least take one at home, and then, all hell can break loose. People are saying they're not going to hit 23 threes again. Probably not, but the chess game changes as the series progresses. So we'll see what happens. Boston could get an injury that could change stuff too. We never know. Also, following up on our old friend Kevin Durant and Kyrie, the Mavericks looked bad in the first game against the Clippers, but now have started to turn around. They won too. Kyrie's been great in Dallas this year. Got to give him credit. I know he didn't show up in Brooklyn, and I like watching Kyrie. He's a great player. It's just very frustrating that he decided to, behave the way he did on the Nets. It just sucks because I wanted to see him play great for the Nets, and he just never really was invested. And meanwhile, his the other former net, Kevin Durant, is down 3-0 to the Timberwolves and got booed by Suns fans. That's pretty crazy. I didn't think that this Suns team. I didn't think that Suns team would be bad, but I didn't think they would struggle like this in the playoffs. I thought they would make it pretty far. It's gonna be Denver. It's gonna be Denver again. Unfortunately, they just have the best team, and they're beating up on the Lakers now. The Lakers keep it close, and then Denver just says, "No, this is our game." D'Lo looks very upset on the Lakers. Doesn't look like he's having a good time. So that whole experiment with the Lakers, I think, is done. And finally, we got Panthers and Rangers up 3-0. And I think the Islanders are down 0-3. Islanders have not been playing well in the playoffs. But the Panthers and Rangers are up 3-0. The Rangers look more dominant. They are kicking butt. The Panthers are playing closer games, but they're taking care of business. In the playoffs, you like to see teams win the close games, I think, because it shows you can deal with the high pressure situations, but beating up on teams is never bad either. You're just trying to win games, so it doesn't matter if you win by 5. It doesn't matter if you win by 1. And again, it kind of is shaping up. It depends on Carolina because Carolina looks good for a Panthers Rangers Eastern Conference Finals. I'm really looking forward to it. Um, and the Knicks and the Rangers are probably going to advance in the playoffs, and the Garden's going to be hopping for the next few months here. But I'm really looking forward to Panthers Rangers. I'm hoping it happens. It's kind of lining up that way, and we all we can do is hope for the best there. That would be fantastic. But as always, I'd like to remind everyone to please like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to do a video once a week. We've been pretty consistent for the past month, and yeah, I'm going to try to do Saturdays and release on Saturday. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.